So we're going about 35 miles per hour. We're gonna go ahead and hit these railroad tracks.
Nothing.
Nothing. I mean, just like that, Skippy's probably going. What's up, YouTube? We're finally back. It's been 2 weeks since Toyota Jamboree, and I can finally get back to the normal things that I do here. I don't know. Well, I'm excited. I'm sorry. But today we have a 2019 Lexus GX460, and we're going to be doing a lift kit on it. It's the Elka 2.5s, and I am super stoked to do this lift because if you're in the side-by-side community, you know who Elka is, and they're starting to dip into the automotive market, which is fantastic. We have a lot to cover. Let's get this thing going. Now, with this lift kit, we are going to be doing SPC upper control arms, which gives us a really good alignment and stuff like that. And I need to take this plastic cover off so I can. Ta-da. It's not that easy. You have to take all these little plastic rivets off. But to get to the upper control arm main pass-through bolt, you need access to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. And now that I did that, I can go ahead and lift the truck up and get the tires off of it and see if we can knock out the front end before lunch. All right, so if you're unfamiliar with Toyota and Lexus's KDSS system, it's basically a disconnectable sway bar from factory. Now, when you're driving normal on the road, this piston here maintains solid hydraulic pressure, helping keeping the sway bar pretty active. When you're off-roading and stuff like that, and you start really articulating the front end, what it does is that it allows this piston to collapse and gives more articulation to the truck, which is really, really cool if you're, wanting to have that nice stability on the road and then be pretty capable off-road. It's just not fun it's not fun to work with, but we make do as it is. So the first things first is I want to go ahead and relax the KDSS system. So we're going to lift up the truck even higher and go to the actual block and release the valves. So if you look from over here and we go straight here along the frame, this is the KDSS module, or not module, but there's a block under here, and then there's two screws here that you can tighten and loosen. And when you loosen them, it releases the pressure from the KDSS system, and then you can move it at your own will. This is the front sway bar and this is the rear sway bar. So I'm gonna mark right down here, one, and then I'm gonna mark right down here, and I'm gonna do 1.5 rotations. And that should be enough to loosen up the KDSS system to let me work on it. I also want to note real quick, do not take the screw all the way out. You're gonna have a bad day if you do. Just don't do it, okay? Now I'm gonna go ahead and take this bottom skid off, and I can get to all the suspension pieces that I need to get to. Yeah. I know. Thank you, gorgeous. So I'm gonna try to do the most annoying part first, and that is taking the upper control arms off, and that will give me enough room to kind of play around and get the shock out. And once I do that, I'm a happy camper, because it's smooth sailing from there. I also want to note that it helps a lot if you take these guys out. So I have this little cool body tool, and it works. I mean, it works so well on these. I just go in behind it and pop them. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and undo these ABS line right here, release the cotter. I'm not gonna loosen this actual bolt just yet. I want to use the spring from the bushings to go ahead and help me release this from the ball joint. So. just get to hitting. Just like that. And you see how this thing popped up like that? It's like on a spring. So when we put the SBCs on here and they have the free floating bushing, I can torque down that A-arm and I can move it up and down freely, and that gives a lot. It makes it softer, and it gives you a lot more articulation because now the shock does not have to fight the A-arm bushings. So. It's like when I go. It's when I go to record, is when they decide to just move everything in the shop. Every time. It never fails. It's... Okay, so one thing I did before I'm gonna go ahead and take this guy out is I went ahead and I took the 10mm bolt off the knuckle for here to keep this relaxed. I have actually internally broken the ABS wire inside of these before in the past, and because it just gets too much tension, and these wires are actually really small. So you can break them really easy. So if you just installed your lift kit and all of a sudden you got ABS lights, warnings, and indicators, that's usually gonna be your problem. So make sure you give it enough slack so you're not putting a lot of tension on it, because that's not what you want to do. And just pre-warning, this is not really a tutorial. I'm just kind of showing you guys what I do and kind of giving y'all information. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and prep the other side though. So. Yeah. I usually like to undo this brake line right here off the frame, and then I gently move it out of the way. This is gonna give me access to this nut right here. So that's one thing I recommend. I already did it here on the other side. But that's what I do, and it gives me plenty of room to take care of what I need to take care of. Okay, now that I got both sides prepped and ready to go, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is bring the truck down as low as I can get it, and that's gonna give me access up top, because it's gonna help being able to reach from the bottom and the top to get those long bolts out. So there's some harness clips here that I wanna go ahead and move out of the way. I'm gonna get this flashlight in a better spot. There we go. But these, very simple, some needle nose pliers, and then just push right in. And those are out of the way. Just like that. And then we need to go ahead and lightly fold this lip a little bit out, and that's gonna give me access to squeeze this bolt out. And that's all you really need to do. Once I get this done, I can lightly fold it back and you won't even know I was there. Now that we're in the engine bay, right down all the way in here, there's a little 10mm bolt for this bracket for this harness right here. That's in our way. We need to go ahead and loosen that and take it out. Now most of our prep work is done to get the upper control arm out, and now it's just loosening it and working our way out, or working the arm out, or seeing if it works out. Yes? And now it's just, this is the fun part, you just have to work it, through. And it's out. Now the other side. All right, so now I got the vehicle lifted right back up, and I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up the lower control arms and the bottom bolt for the shock, and then the 3 top bolt nuts on the top of the shock. And then I'll show you the kind of trick that I do to squeeze them out. Okay, now that I got everything else ready, I am prepared to take the shocks out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play with the KDSS here, because I don't wanna unbolt the sway bars. It makes it a big pain to put it back together. I just don't wanna deal with it. So I have a transjack here. I'm gonna push up on this arm, which is gonna push the other arm down, and this is gonna give me all the room I need to take the shock out and put the new one in. So let's do it. Now, we're gonna go up, get the stem out of the way, and there's our shock. Now you just move the transjack to the other side, and then you get both of them out. All right, so here is our lift kit from Elka, and these are the 2.5s that we're installing on the GX460. And I have my brother Alex here, who's also my business partner in Tandem Off-Road, and we're gonna talk a little bit about these Elkas. So I guess we can go ahead and start opening them up. Okay. We can start with this box right here. This is probably what, a rear shock?
Looks like it. Let's see.
This is a front.
Oh yeah, that's probably a front.
So if you're familiar in the side-by-side world, you probably have heard of Elka, but if you're not familiar with the side-by-side world, Elka might be a new brand that you haven't heard of before. We're particularly really excited about it. I'm a Kings guy, like I love Kings, but Elka is very quickly changing my perspective. So, you want to talk about the construction?
Yeah, some of the things that make Elka stand out from the competition is basically the high quality of construction. So for example, some of the shocks that the competitors make have steel bodies, while the Elkas have gone to aluminum bodies, which have better heat dissipation and just make for a lighter shock, which is really good to have when you have like unsprung mass. The shafts are induction hardened, which is basically it's the way you can make the hardest shaft out of steel. So there's no way to make a steel shaft harder than this. The valving that Elka uses, they're very, very particular about their valving, and they do a lot of shock tuning to make sure that they're using the least amount of shims possible, because as the shims stack up, it makes the shocks unpredictable. So by keeping the shims, by doing the majority of the tuning in the piston and doing just a little bit of work with the shims to fine tune it, they can give you a way better ride than you would if you were doing most of your tuning with shims. Other than that, you know, the construction is gorgeous. The craftsmanship is gorgeous. There's high speed and low speed damping.
So is that why it has two adjustment tabs on it?
Yeah.
So what is high speed and low speed?
So high speed would be basically like a jump and you land. That's a very, very fast movement of the piston, and you can adjust the damping for that. Or like low speed would be, you know, if you're going on the highway and there's like a couple of smooth, you know, bumps, and it's just a little bit of float is what I would call the low speed damping.
Would low speed also be like when you're off-roading, or is that more like just a daily drive kind of thing?
I mean, it could be both. It just depends on the obstacle, you know.
Oh, okay. So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty stoked about these. I'd love to get a set on my Tacoma, but well, maybe if Elka's watching, we'll see. So here, I believe this is the rear shocks.
Looks like it, yeah.
Now, one thing I'm already seeing here that I'm very excited about is the elongated hose for the reservoir. It's going to allow me to tuck this reservoir out of the way from debris and rocks and stuff like that from off-roading.
Yeah, and then the other cool thing is that I like is these machined washers on top. There's a nylock on here, so it's kind of hard to get it off. But
I'll get it real quick.
the machined washers are really cool. And the other cool thing is basically the same thing as a front, but you basically get one of these cool covers that protect the shaft from rocks from the front wheels. So this will extend the life of the shock considerably and keep them operating happily for basically most of their life. A big part of shock wear comes from rocks and debris hitting the shaft, causing little dents and scratches, and then those dents and scratches rubbing up against the oil seals, and over time dirt gets in those dents and scratches, and it goes into the oil gets dirty, and your shock doesn't damp as well. But by having one of these, you're basically protecting your shock from all that stuff. And just like the front, this has high speed and low speed damping.
And if you guys are seriously interested in purchasing this kit, I will put a link in the description below. That's a direct link to the kit. This one is for the GX460. I think it also works on the 5th Gen 4Runner.
Maybe. The reservoir mounts might be different because of KDSS.
That's correct. So partnered with these shocks, we're running the Toy Tech
RCC 2.0.
RCC 2.0. I didn't look to see if this one has airbags in the back, but it does have no airbags. So it came with some extra stuff here. So that is our spring, and it's kind of a mess here, but we get better the more we do these. And then one of the other components that I really like to talk about, and this is the stuff that a lot of people ask us, what type of upper control arms do we prefer, and our weapon of choice is SBC. They have a very good construction. They have a very nice ride quality. They make alignments very easy because the upper ball joint can be rotated to reach different types of camber and caster. Also, it's very easy maintenance. So it's just a good A-arm all the way around. Not that the other ones any other brands are not as good. It's just this is what we've been the happiest with.
So one of the main reasons we run SPCs is they have this sealed joints over here that are basically completely free of noise. And one of the biggest complaints that we get when people get their suspension installed is squeaking. And with the SPCs, we have no squeaking. So because these hold alignment pretty well, they perform very well, they're affordable, and they make no noise, it's our top recommendation.
Well, cool. So that's our parts list, and now
Good
that
job.
we've got the abuse that I go through. No, you can go back to work. No, stop touching me. Anyways, so that is our parts list. That is the Elka kit. Like I said before, if you guys are interested in looking into the Elka kits, it's not the cheapest kit on the market, but it's definitely one of the best right now. And I will put a link of it on the description below. Now let's get back to work. All right, we can go ahead and just stick this guy right in here. Just like before, we're gonna go ahead and put that there. And we can put one of the upper strut tower bolts here. And while I can, I'm gonna go ahead and stick in our lower shock bolt. I'm going to go ahead and attach the rest of these, or not attach, but screw in. Maybe we can relax it all the way. Now the other side.
Michael had a good idea of pushing the KDSS piston to lower the other side to get the old shock out of the passenger side. It worked really well.
Alright, so I got both sides installed now, and that is interesting. Now, before I actually mount the reservoirs, to save me on room, I'm going to go ahead and install the upper control arms. Okay, first things first, I want to go ahead and put my A-arms together before we go ahead and drop them inside the truck. And what I like to do is grab the ball joint. Now, you can see how, actually let's talk about this ball joint real quick. See this nut right here? It's like a hex nut kind of thing, and then you have this washer here that's kind of like a star pattern. And you can clock this certain ways to get more caster, less caster. So we're going to go ahead and set it to the neutral position because these arms are set pretty good out of the box. And then you're going to see that there's like a square outline here. That's where this guy is going to go right in here. Make sure that you can see the SPC label on the ball joint when you're putting it on. Now, I like to push these all the way up. And we're going to put our nut and washer on the other side. And don't worry about torquing it down. We're going to torque it down on the truck to 150 foot-pounds. So the way I like to set these is I bring them as high as I can, and then I bring it down to 100 to about there. And the way you can see it is this corner here is kind of lined up to that edge right there. And that gives me a really good alignment. Sometimes depending on the weight of the vehicle, you can go all the way up, and that's going to give you enough camber to do what you need to do. So now that we have this put together, we have our two new outside washers for the long bolt, and we're going to go ahead and put it on the truck. Grab our A-arm and put it in the truck. Make sure that you stick this under the ABS harness, or else you're going to put it all together, fight it, and then realize that it's not, you're not going to be able to flex it much. So once you get it lined up, just push our bolts all the way in. This harness, there we go. Put our back washer on here. Put the back nut on. And go ahead and install our upper ball joint nut. Our 10mm for our ABS harness on both of these right here. Snug, they don't need to be super tight. There we go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and torque everything down. These upper bolts here are going to be 52 foot-pounds. And now the nut that attaches the shock absorber to the bottom, that's 118 foot-pounds. Now we're going to torque down our upper ball joint to the knuckle. It's 81 foot-pounds. And now our upper shock bolt for the A-arm, that's 85 foot-pounds. And I'm watching this nut over the other side of the bolt to make sure it's not spinning. Usually it stays pretty still. There we go. And there we go, we're torqued up front. Also, don't forget to put your cotter pin on the upper ball joint nut. Also, don't forget to reattach your brake line bracket over here. So let's make sure that's all taken care of. Alrighty, cool. I'm gonna go button up the other side and yeah, we'll tackle the reservoirs after that. Real quick, almost forgot. We need to make sure we pop this harness back in its spot there, and the bracket that we did on top. Don't forget to bolt that back in. So we gotta go ahead and put on our reservoir bracket. And we'll go ahead and stick our reservoir right here. Okay. So what I want to do is make sure we're not anywhere near the frame. And I want to stack these guys on top of here so that when we're in full turn, we're not hitting the clamp. And I'll hold that like that. And that way it's not touching the frame, everything is on there. Pretty easy to reach the adjusters, so cool. We're officially done with this side and now to the other. Having the ability to put these rain guards back in and not have a reservoir mount in the way is, love it. That's a massive win on mine. But that's it for our front. We're done with the front. Now we need to do the rear. And get it in the sleeve at the bottom first. We're going to go ahead and put our bolts